Why so many young women are facing a loneliness crisis. Story by Emily Davis. Loneliness is usually associated with old age, but for countless young women of today, that's not even half the picture. Fresh evidence indicates that young single women are increasingly becoming lonely, and that paints an entirely more complex picture of what is now also referred to as a loneliness epidemic. It appears loneliness doesn't take a linear journey throughout life. Scientists have discovered that it takes more of a U-shape. It peaks when we're young and again when we're older. Between, of course, most folks are busy with relationships, families, and careers. But for young women who are not going the same route, the experience can be very different. Single women are indicating higher levels of loneliness than their male counterparts, or even older people. As author Georgina Lawton suggests, the stress of reaching classic life benchmarks, such as finding a partner, having children, or getting a secure career can make women feel behind the times or out of place, particularly when those do not happen in sync with their values or timeline. The world outside is not much help either. With the increasing cost of living, going out has begun to be considered a luxury. For most women, particularly in large cities, being advised to just move somewhere less expensive or go where the men are isn't practical advice. And as increasingly more of our social life takes place online, we sacrifice the type of face-to-face time that allows us to connect deeply. Without those in-person moments, it's more difficult to create strong, lasting relationships. And loneliness isn't just about feeling sad. Can impact your health. The CDC defines social isolation as lacking contact with others, while loneliness is the sense of feeling disconnected, even if you're surrounded by people. Both are common. About 1 in 3 US adults say they feel lonely, and both can take a toll. Loneliness and isolation can raise the risk of mental health struggles like anxiety and depression, and even affect your physical health. For women, this link between loneliness and mental health can be particularly challenging. According to the Mental Health Foundation, women are nearly twice as likely as men to suffer from anxiety. A combination of experiences during life such as childhood trauma, social pressure, or significant life changes can contribute to it. Keeping up with expectations regarding looks, achievement, or milestones can make women feel lonely and not good enough. And with most of these days reducing social time or even sleep to just keep the cost of living, things that would normally safeguard mental health are falling by the wayside. When real life doesn't live up to what society says it's supposed to be like, it's simple to feel behind. Watching friends get wed or observing colleagues advance up the professional ladder can trigger comparisons that pinch. It feels like everybody else has their life together except you. Georgina Lawton calls this type of loneliness something you carry with you, particularly during bereavement, difficult breakups, or when you feel like you just don't fit in. Nevertheless, there is good reason to be optimistic. Since the pandemic, greater numbers of people are building communities to gather and connect in real, tangible ways. Consider supper clubs, book clubs, hobby clubs, or creative gatherings. These smaller groups provide something profound, an opportunity to simply be yourself and connect around common interests without the pressure of adhering to another's definition of success. Loneliness in young women is intimate, but it's also influenced by the world we inhabit, our economy, our culture, and what we're told about how our lives are supposed to be. By speaking of it honestly and acknowledging where it originates, we can start to transition towards something more. True connection, a feeling of community, and most significantly, the freedom to create what belonging means for us. The post "Why So Many Young Women Are Facing a Loneliness Crisis" appeared first on gymbagforyou.com. No wonder young single women are lonelier than ever. Where is their community? Article by Georgina Lawton. I learned a crucial lesson when I moved abroad. Fighting loneliness is all about finding meaningful connections. Loneliness is often seen as an old people problem, something that affects us much later in life. But data published last month shows that single women are disproportionately affected by this little discussed issue. Researchers found that loneliness follows a U-shaped pattern. There's an uptick at the start and end of adulthood, but it drops during middle age, when many of us are preoccupied with families, relationships, and career building. But for single women who don't follow this trend, self-reported loneliness is disproportionately high. I fit squarely into this category, and I have definitely felt lonely over the years. It's hardly surprising when you look at the realities of being a single woman today. Women in big cities are now being advised to move elsewhere, to find a suitable partner or affordable housing. Having children is becoming increasingly out of reach for those who aren't wealthy, and any form of socializing in our post-pandemic, high cost of living economy feels like a luxury. For those of us who are single by choice, who don't want kids and don't date, the constant gendered expectations of what life should look by a certain point can feel relentless and isolating, and often come at the expense of community. The latest research echoes findings by the Campaign to End Loneliness, which found that women are more likely to be chronically lonely than men, and that 16 to 29-year-olds are twice as likely to be chronically lonely than those who are over 70. Older people are, of course, at high risk of extreme loneliness in the UK too, but it's significant that the face of this loneliness epidemic is increasingly shifting to the young and female. In both the young and old, loneliness is subjective and stems from the gap between what we hope for and what we get when it comes to our personal relationships. For young women, feelings of loneliness are no doubt exacerbated by the disconnect between the societal expectations heaped on us when it comes to dating, life and families, and the reality that many of us are living. Patriarchal societies not only disfranchise single people, but people are also penalized for not fitting into cultural gender norms. There are tax breaks for married couples, while single people end up forking out a surcharge just to go on holiday alone. Add to the mix that so many of our social interactions now happen online instead of in person, at the cost of those all-important nuances around intimacy and communication, making it harder to form authentic bonds. And I can understand why so many young women may be feeling disappointed with their realities. In my mid-20s, I definitely struggled with belonging. I was grieving the loss of my dad, bouncing between unstable relationships and house shares in London, and grappling with my sense of self-worth and identity. My loneliness was so acute that it felt like a backpack I carried with me everywhere I went. It didn't help that so many people around me seemed to settle effortlessly into romantic relationships and stable graduate jobs, while I was a struggling freelancer and often single. But living in Lisbon for the past few years, a smaller, sunnier city, I finally started to shrug off the need to compare myself with others. My friends lived closer to me, and last-minute plans were easy to make. I crafted a community and socialist with carefree abandon in Lisbon, found lots of single female friends, and started writing retreats for women of color. I'm back in London now. Even though I know my way around here and how it operates, booking friends 3 weeks in advance is unfortunately still de rigueur. I'm cautious that loneliness may rear its ugly head again. But post-pandemic, there seems to be a better understanding of loneliness and the importance of taking steps to combat it. A booming market for niche meetup groups has appeared in recent years, which fills me with hope, and single women have options. There are singles supper clubs. I went to one recently in Notting Hill called Gucci, which was great. Women's book clubs, anti-dating app meetups, sip and paints for people of color, LGBTQ run clubs, and so much more. I have made a list of things I want to try, and I also plan to volunteer as a mentor for young women. To me, fighting loneliness is all about finding meaningful connection. Navigating the learning curves that are thrown at you in your late 20s and early 30s can feel overwhelming, especially within the context of what is traditionally expected of young women. But even if it sounds like a cliché, pouring energy into your own life, building a community, and tuning out the background noise is key, as is remaining optimistic, however unfounded that may be, that there is always something brighter and better around the corner. Georgina Lawton is the author of Raceless: In Search of Family, Identity, and the Truth About Where I Belong.